Everybody to please take your seat and welcome you to this evening's town board meeting of Monday, July 22nd, 2024. We're going to begin the evening with a pledge of allegiance, if you'd please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and And I would ask our town clerk to please call the roll.
Supervisor Copa.
Here.
Deputy Supervisor Lavin.
Present.
Councilmember Berger.
Here.
Councilmember Zuccalla.
Here.
And Councilmember Marinucci.
Here. Thank you.
Okay, first item on our agenda is the approval of minutes from Monday, July 8th, 2024. I'll motion to adopt those as they appeared.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next item on our agenda is a continuation of public hearing, Resolution 2024-576. It is an appeal of the Historic Preservation Commission decision on 400 Mill Street. I'm going to motion to reopen the public hearing at this time.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I'm going to ask the petitioner to please come forward.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board. My name is Thomas Lyons from the law firm of Duke, Holzman, Photiadis, and Gressens here on behalf of the applicant, the owners of the St. Mary's property. Again, the members of the board, you've already had the pleasure of hearing me and one of my colleagues from the historic preservation side speak for the better part of 15 minutes on this issue. So I'll save you seeing and hearing all of that again. What I will simply say is it is our position that the Historic Preservation Commission erred simply when they denied the application for certificate of appropriateness. We believe that the sample boards that we've got off to your left and my right of the room, and I've also got two smaller sort of handheld samples if the board members would like it. Otherwise, I can leave it here at the lectern. Simply put, we believe that it maintains the aesthetic value of real slate, and especially when you look at this building where the slate roof is only going to be viewed from 40 feet away and down. Pending any questions from the board, I'll obviously turn it over then to the rest of the public meeting.
Are questions from this board first? All right, so there are people who signed in for public hearing. Usually we don't do that. But I'm going to go in order first, the people who signed in to speak about St. Mary's. So,
Wait a minute. Shouldn't we have the people from HPC speak first?
yeah, there are members of Historic Preservation Commission here. That was the body that did render a decision that is being, we were asked for appeal. I would ask if you have somebody you want to come forward, go ahead and you can speak about the project and about your decision. And just state your name and address for the record when you speak, please.
Sure. My name is Brian Swartz. I'm the chair of the Historic Preservation Commission for the town of Amherst. I live at 3 Buttonbush Court. So we received this letter, and I'd like to make a couple statements, and I also would like to go over a couple things too. My colleague Jeff Appelman also has some statements to make as well. And of course, any of us on the board, including Ms. Kenzie, can answer any questions after we've gone through everything. So first, there are 2 items listed on this letter from the petitioner. Number 1.
So you're referring to a letter regarding the request for an appeal?
This is dated May 16th, 2024, from Duke Holzman, Photitis and Grisons LLP, addressed to the town board and myself. So first point, the HPC's decision was not based on any findings of fact supported by the record. And number 2, the HPC did not review or apply the correct standards to the St. Mary's application for a certificate of appropriateness. And if we go into the letter, they go into detail about their claims. So number 1, as you can see, HPC's decision should be reversed and St. Mary's application granted because the HPC's decision was not based on any findings of fact supported by the record, and the deliberations resulting in this decision were made in secret in violation of open meetings law. So my rebuttal to that would be that is a purported claim of violation of open meetings law, and it's unfounded. I asked legal counsel for procedural and process information and questions, and no deliberations took place. I don't know how this claim is being made. I don't believe that there's any transcript of our meeting, and so that, to me, that's an unfounded claim right off first thing. And number 2, use of materials, which is on page, I believe it's 6. HPC's decision should be reversed and St. Mary's application granted because the HPC created an insurmountable threshold test as a pretext to a hardship application rather than applying the actual standards enumerated in the town code. So they're referring to these 8 considerations that were made as part of the open discussion. We had all received, I believe all members of our board received training on March 21st, 2024 as an update to the Preservation Brief 16 by the National Parks Interior Standards. And in that training, that's where we learned about these 8 considerations. And those were what helped us guide us in our forming an informed decision from that training. And now I'd like to go through page by page with some notes that I made. On page 6, we'd like to rebut that this is not a hardship consideration. No hardship was being reviewed. We never received a hardship application, so there was nothing we could review in that context. Page 7, HPC exceeded the scope of its authority when it created and employed a new 8-part threshold. And again, economic hardship was never opened. An appeal was never opened. At the bottom of the site too, and this is a bit probably out of order for procedure, but they do reference the Theodore Roosevelt inauguration site located on Delaware Avenue in Buffalo. That's at the bottom of page 7. They reference that it's owned by the National Park Service and it has synthetic composite roofing material. However, the building they're referencing was constructed in 2009. It is not an original building, and it was an addition where they added that material at that time. The main building is a standing seam metal roof. On page 8, the previous denial, yeah. So I printed off our previous denial from December 12th, 2023. In my opinion, it would be arbitrary and capricious to approve the same material that was presented to us 4 months later. So in my December 12th motion, I had said use of an alternative material as a replacement for the original slate roofing material. Motion to deny, the use of an alternative material. That passed 4 yeses, 1 no, and 1 abstention. And that was December, and then we received this packet of information, which contained the same EcoStar product in April of 2024. So I know we all sat and listened to the presentation. We thought we may get some new information. There was a large packet of information, but in my opinion, it was the same material. And I hope you've all had a chance to review the project timeline that was put together by Mr. James Quinn from the Planning Department. I'll just go over it quickly. The very first step in this project was when we were notified that the owners of the building were removing the existing slate roof without a building permit and without a certificate of appropriateness for the Preservation Commission. And it goes on from there, and we had a lot of back and forth in 2023 until the denial in December of 2023. And then in 2024, they hired this group, Heritage Consulting Group, who has done some excellent preservation work all around the country, including replacement of existing slate in kind. And we had hoped that the petitioner would seek possible tax credits. This building certainly it can be applied for this building based on its status. Want to make some comments? Sure. I'll cede to Mr. Appleman. Thank you.
Hello, Jeff Ampleman, member of the HPC, 72 Arcade Avenue, Town of Amherst. I just want to note that per section 121-8 of the Town Code, our decisions on the HPC must be guided in determining certificate of appropriateness by the Secretary of Interior standards for evaluating substitute materials. And per those standards, when replacement materials are requested, they shall match in the old composition, design, color, texture, and other visual properties, and where possible, and emphasis added, where possible, materials. Now, relief to those guidelines are provided in the case for materials where there are no longer available historic materials, there's unavailability of skilled artisans to perform the work, inadequate durability of the original materials, code requirements, and for the enhancement and resilience and sustainability of the building. At no time did the applicant present any evidence to the fact that the roof would meet any of those criteria. It became evident to us that it seemed as though it was primarily economic based, and the guidance goes on to say that while economic concerns are inevitable with these projects, they should not be the sole determinant for determining alternative materials. Thank you.
Okay. We can answer any questions you may have that have stemmed from this open public hearing.
Does the board have any questions for Historic Preservation Commission?
Actually, if you don't mind, at the presentation we ended up viewing 2 weeks ago, the folks who recommend the, well, what we'll call the artificial slate, said that there were other locations that also used artificial slate. So when you said arbitrary and capricious, that sort of unnerved me. What would be your response to that?
In other cases where they may have received approval from other municipalities and other boards, in this case, to me, it kept coming to the economic stance. In our statute, there is a section for economic hardship. So if that were to be the case, we would certainly review it, consider it. But unfortunately, there was nothing in the presentation that said from them that their only alternative was to change the material. And so again, like Mr. Ampleman said, we're guided by National Parks, Office of Interior Standards, and changing out the material is only possible, I guess, I guess it could be possible in some instances. We had found that not to be the case in this instance.
Any further questions for Historic Preservation Commission? Okay, thanks, Brian.
Okay, thank you very much.
Would you like to come back up for a minute? I think we probably have a couple questions just to review. So, the last public hearing, you stated that you cited the Teddy Roosevelt Historic Society site as a local example of a slate roof replaced by alternative slate. The building addition did appear to be constructed in 2009, new build with that roof. Can you address the quandary in your presentation?
So respectfully, I'll identify, I don't think it's a quandary. The issue and the reason why Teddy Roosevelt was brought up by myself and Mr. Kraus was rather simple and straightforward. The 8-part test that was employed based on what you just heard, even from the HPC members themselves, as supposed to be guidance, were used as criterion. There is a distinct difference between something that is a criterion, which is a test that must be met, versus something that is guidance. It is meant to be a consideration, something to guide your decision, not to control your decision. And to that point, the Theodore Roosevelt property is owned and operated by the National Park Service. So the point of illustrating that, yes, it may have been an addition, yes, it may have been built prior, was the fact that the National Park Service itself did not employ that test the way that it was employed below.
But it wasn't a rebuild. Don't you think it was disingenuous for you to present it as though it was a reconstruction? And, I mean, you presented it here as though the National Park Service had employed that test and decided to use the material. But on a new build roof, they don't need to apply the test. It's simply a decision on which base materials to start new construction from. So how can you cite it as an example of National Park Service using it as a retrofit when in fact it's not a retrofit, it's a new build?
Because while it may be an addition to the property, it is still attached to the historic property itself. It is still the roof on that property itself. But more to your point, Mr. Culpa, herein lies the other example. You heard at the last meeting 2 weeks ago, there were a slew of other properties. So even if you wish to disregard Teddy Roosevelt entirely, there are countless other properties across New York State and the country as a whole that have used this on non-additions to their properties on the actual historic section of the property, if you want to parse it out by addition versus otherwise. The fact remains.
I think it's important to just recognize that, I mean, it was presented as the primary case study to say that National Park Service is indeed using this on their own buildings.
It was presented, and if that's how you interpreted it, I do apologize, but herein lies the difference, is it was operating as an example of the National Park Service replacing a roof on a building it owns and not employing this test for...
But it didn't replace the roof. It put the roof on for the first time.
It's not the first time that they put the roof on, respectfully.
In 2009?
In 2009, I don't believe that's the first time they put the roof on.
They
But
re-roofed that
even,
building twice since 2009.
and again, this is where I will go to, even if, fine, disregard Teddy Roosevelt. Assume for the sake of argument that I somehow was incorrect on that. The fact remains there are countless other buildings that have employed this exact material or a direct competitor to it for this exact purpose, which this material exists for the precise purpose of replacing slate roofs. And that's why, and again, this is where I will come full circle back to, the prior applications, frankly, were prior applications under the prior version of the town code. This board passed the new version of the town code implemented and effective December 18th of 2023. The application we submitted that is currently before this board on appeal from the HPC was submitted as a new application under a new threshold test under the new standards and passed by this board. And those three considerations, general considerations, and 5 actual factors all ask one question 5 different ways. Does it appear similar? Does it maintain the aesthetic? That is the simplest question to ask. It is the simplest question to answer. Finally, and I'll note this, while the HPC, and you heard it again here, indicated that the hardship application, that they couldn't consider economics at all in any capacity because it wasn't a hardship application. Again, I will simply point to, A, the hardship application is not the appellate process for the automatic denial of a certificate of appropriateness under this town board's code. But 2, or B rather, is the fact that a hardship is vastly different than simply recognizing this material costs dramatically less to install as we've got a contractor ready to install it. So that doesn't require demonstrating that we're going to be put into an economic hardship, simply to acknowledge that this is more cost effective for an aesthetically preserving material.
I don't think anybody up here is questioning the hardship issue. I think that, again, the issue for me becomes, if what we've been presented, what we're asking for here isn't just a scenario where we're being asked to decide aesthetic quality of one product versus another, and it's a town board, subjective scenario. What you're asking us to do is overturn the decision of an appointed independent deciding body, right? So, in perspective, we could potentially create a different scenario. There's been incidents in this community where town board has done that arbitrarily, and we can neither afford to overturn something arbitrarily, nor to deny an appeal arbitrarily, right? We have to get this right. So if the content that has been presented, in my opinion, has been misrepresented in that circumstance, then it has to be noted. And that's why I was asking the question.
Understood. If I may direct your attention, and again, this is where I'll emphasize, set aside Teddy Roosevelt for one moment. Exhibit tab 4 to our appellate submission here was our complete submission, inclusive of a certified transcript of the proceedings that took place. Exhibit 2 to that itself was the affidavit from Mr. Kraus, and his report in that original submission details a slew of other properties. More importantly, there was a handout that was provided to this board 2 weeks ago that accompanied the slide packet that we put up that provided no fewer than an additional 7 examples of historic properties in New York.
Again, but there was a direct conversation regarding that. So thank you for answering the question.
I'll also point out in that same slide packet, it is noted that the 2009 NPS was a replacement EcoStar synthetic roof on the Teddy Roosevelt structure. So I don't know if they replaced it. I don't know. I will rely on the expert that's presented at this board. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, there are a number of people on the list to speak. I'm going to start with Thomas Granville and ask you to please come forward.
Good evening. Thank you very much for your participation in our effort to replace the slate roof at St. Mary's with synthetic slate. Again, I outlined the reasons and the needs for the roof, given the current condition of the roof. We have many St. Mary's residents here again at this hearing. We appreciate the time the Historic Preservation Commission took with our presentation. We appreciate the time that this board is taking, and we hope that you vote yes and support our effort to replace a roof which is needed to be replaced. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to ask Kathy Tepes and Glenn Behringer, please come forward.
Not as tall as the rest of them, so I'm going to put this down a little bit. Okay, oops. He's my right-hand man, and he's leaving me there. Thank you. Okay. Good evening. My name is Kathy Tepes, and I am a former resident of St. Mary's Apartments and presently a community hab worker for People Inc. I want to thank the board for allowing me to speak on behalf of my client, Glenn Behringer, a proud St. Mary's resident since October 2020, and therefore coming up on his 4th anniversary of living there. Hey, do you want to wave to all your friends behind us? Like a politician. There you go. Ooh, you got claps. There you go. The condition of the present roof over the past years impacts Glenn's quality of life on a daily basis. Glenn's love of and knowledge of plants led him to join St. Mary's Gardening Club from the time that he moved in, and he proudly took full responsibility for the area of the courtyard where all his plants grew, and he even watered everyone else's plants daily to assure that they continued growth and beauty. With the roof conditions worsening, entrance to both courtyards was prohibited, and caused the disbandment of the gardening club, which caused a lot of sadness and frustration to those with now unattended plants, and the cancellation of all the evening social time enjoyed in the beautiful, peaceful courtyard. The same courtyard that offered alone time for meditation and restoration of mind and soul to whomever wanted to go in there. Due to Glenn's love of plants, he sought outside activity at Mishler's Florist and is now presently a proud volunteer with his life coach at the South Park Botanical Gardens in Lackawanna. Due to the position of his apartment to the windows that overlook the courtyard, Glenn is reminded on a daily basis that no one is enjoying the Forbidden Gardens. He makes sure to remind many of his friends to keep out, that it's not safe in there, and that someone could get hurt. This he does on a daily basis. He's concerned about his fellow residents. Glenn's vote on this roofing matter is to have the roof fixed as soon as possible, thus allowing all the internal building issues to be fixed also, thus restoring quality of life for all the residents at St. Mary's, including himself. We want to thank you again for giving Glenn the opportunity to have his views expressed, to share some of his life story, and his love for his St. Mary's residents. Thank you. There you go, bud.
Next is Sister Judy Beiswanger.
As I was preparing for this, I became very emotional. For those who weren't at the last meeting, our sisters built this building. It is our home. It was our home for many, many years. I entered that building in 1967 and lived there for many years. And then sadly, we had to sell it. I came back 4 years ago, and the manager said, "Welcome home." I feel we're not just talking about a building. We're talking about our home, my home and the home of many people here. I love St. Mary's. I don't talk about it as an apartment. I talk about it as my home. And I support the proposal for the synthetic slate roof so that we may have a safe place to live in our home. I ask you to say yes, please, to the repairs at a reasonable cost, and it may be a safe home once again. I invite anybody, I'd love to give you a real historic tour of what it truly was many years ago. Thank you for listening, and thank you for your attention.
Hi, I'm Dorothy Tudor. I'm Sister Judy's sister, and I also live at St. Mary's. I'm going to make mine short and sweet. I look everywhere. I look across the room. I can't tell the difference, and I'm just an average person. I don't understand why this is such a hard thing to say yes to. I walk around that building, I drive in every single day, and I look, how can anybody tell the difference between synthetic and the real slate? And at this point, we need it fixed, and we need it fixed as soon as possible. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Michael Clow, and I live at 70 Haymarket Square. I appreciate you giving me a moment to discuss St. Mary's and its much-needed roof. The fact that St. Mary's provides affordable senior housing in the town of Amherst is amazing. The building and grounds are fantastic. Many people, like my wife and I, take full advantage of the park and frequent it often with our dog. Every time we walk and enter the park, we look at the beautiful building and well-kept grounds and think what a wonderful place this must be for seniors to live affordably. We occasionally interact with the residents of St. Mary's and the families, and they all seem so happy. I imagine that some of the happiness is tied to the majestic grounds and the architecture that makes it a unique place to live. While I know the roof is a vital part of the building, it is also 4 stories high and not usually in the line of sight. Unfortunately, the existing roof desperately needs replacing. I have had the opportunity to see the synthetic slate sample, and I feel it will look as good or better than the current slate roofing that needs to be replaced. I believe synthetic slate offers an equal or better roofing solution and is much more affordable, quicker to install, and easier to maintain in the coming years, especially with our harsh winters. I hope to continue interacting with the St. Mary's residents on the grounds, smile at the beautiful building, and know that this could be an affordable place for many to call home. I urge you to vote yes to the synthetic roof. Thank you.
Dennis Blackwell.
Good evening, Town Board members. I've been a resident of St. Mary's for approximately 4 months now, and traveling through the building on the grounds, you talk to various people, and the first topic that usually comes up is the roof. I go, what's wrong with the roof? And then I found out, talking to various people, what the state of the roof is. And I said, is there any samples? They had the samples. I looked at the samples in the lobby. I see them here, and you're looking at both together here. It seems like it's, to me, I'm not an expert, a no-brainer, but the synthetic slate roof looks just as good and aesthetically as the slate roof that's on there now. I grew up in a home on the east side of Buffalo. The slate roof is still there, but it's in dire repairs now, but it's not that bad. But, I implore the town board to, make a decision so we can get this roof done, the synthetic slate roof, and not to wait any longer. Winter's coming, and everybody knows, a roof over your head is a very important thing, especially if it's not leaking, Thank you.
Okay, Dan Ryder.
Easier to read it on the phone. Good evening, everybody. I'm Dan Ryder, 38 Garden Parkway. I was going to talk about construction materials tonight, but particularly the superiority of plastics. But you, the board, has capitulated, so I guess you like plastics all of a sudden. And I think that's good. I question why this simple but large roof replacement project on a low income and senior housing facility would take 18 months to get to this point. This is a huge embarrassment for this town and the town board and the preservation committee. Can anybody explain to me why it takes 4, 5, and 6 town employees, probably all collecting overtime pay, regularly attending historic preservation meetings? Also, a town board liaison was there for some of the meetings. More supervision and direction is needed here, and maybe examination of all committees is in order, okay? I think you have a serious problem of overloaded town employees at these meetings, and it's nothing but feather bedding. If you don't know what that looks, Google it. Feather bedding, 2 words. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there further comments about St. Mary's this evening? Again, please just come forward, say your name and address.
John Traber, 234 Mount Vernon Road. Brian, you talked about misrepresentation and I forget the disingenuousness. So on your statement, let's talk a little bit about disclosure. Does anyone on this town board have any relationship or connection to any member of the HPC?
Okay, I do. It's been documented. I abstained from the vote of the appointment, but my wife serves on the Historic Preservation Commission.
Okay, so you've abstained from your voting on this?
I've abstained from my voting on historic preservation on her appointment, and we have yet to vote on this.
Okay,
So,
but you're still going to vote on it? Don't you think you should maybe
I didn't
recuse
say
yourself
how
from
I
this
was-
vote?
Did I say how I was going to vote, or if I was going to abstain? I'm sitting.
Doesn't
I'm
matter
he-
how you're going to vote.
I
You should
just
recuse
want to
yourself.
Okay,
remind
John, I'm
us,
trying to
we're,
chair a public hearing.
let me,
Okay, stop.
we are here to talk about the project.
This is all part of it, miss.
Okay, please continue. Yes, my wife, Catherine Waterman Culpa, is in fact on the Historic Preservation Commission.
Okay, thank you. And I would support these gentlemen and this wonderful-looking roof. Thank you.
Thank you. Please come forward. Again, just state your name and address for record.
Susan Blum, Old Lime Drive in Amherst, Williamsville. Just point of information here. This is a twofold. I respect what the Historic Preservation Committee is all about. I absolutely respect what they are all about. But I also have to say that we have a twofold problem here because affordable housing in this area for seniors is becoming less and less available. We need to do something about this roof, and I think this is a good compromise between what the Historical Preservation Committee is there to do and what the town board needs to do to keep affordable housing for seniors. Thank you. I'm not going to belabor this, but
Okay, thank you.
yes, common sense.
Bob Dirtle, 92 Chateau Terrace. Earlier this year, for our anniversary, my wife and I went and stayed at the Hotel Henry at the Richardson Complex next to Buff State. They've done a marvelous job on it, restoring the hotel part of it, and they're working on the rest of it. They've replaced the windows and a lot of other stuff with stuff that wasn't available back when the building was built. All right? I don't remember even looking at the roof on the building. It's something that basically, like people have been saying, low-income senior citizen housing, if they're forced to put this new roof on, their rent's going up. And they probably won't be able to afford to stay there. All right? I mean, I remembered something, listen to this stuff, that I was an altar boy for Good Friday services at that building or in the area, long time ago, probably 1968. So I got some history there. All right. If this board and the Historic Preservation Committee would have put this much energy into saving the Squire Shop and next to it, the oldest building in Snyder, it would have been amazing. But you didn't. You snowballed everything. For what reason? Once again, your wife's on there. This is all hooked, that was hooked up with Benderson. Is this something to force the present owners of St. Mary's to sell so that somebody like Benderson can buy it? Thank you.
I just want to clarify. The board has a resolution on this evening which is written in the affirmative overturning the prior decision. This board has never said we weren't going to, but we have to make sure that the metrics of the Historic Preservation Commission's decision are something that this board's comfortable in actually saying that yes, we feel we can overturn via this process. So that's what tonight's about, not this board saying, we're proposing this regulation, right? It's simply whether or not this board feels comfortable in moving forward with the information in front of us in overturning another board's decision. Are there further comments?
No problem.
Dennis Hoban, 216 California Drive, Williamsville, New York. I'm quite familiar with this building. I spoke at the last meeting. I said this was basically a no-brainer. I'd like to address the fact that these fine gentlemen here owned a building and the roof was leaking. And someone from the Historical Preservation Board said that they went and started removing slate. Well, if I owned a building and I had, I don't know if it's 100 residents, I don't even know how many seniors live there, but if the roof started leaking and I owned that building, I would get over there and I would start doing some repair work on it right away, ASAP. Not like this board has let all the roofs at the highway department leak for the last 6 years. Okay? So, apparently you people don't care about roofs that are leaking, but I think the seniors that live there, they probably do. And I actually would applaud these gentlemen for getting over there and fixing that roof right away. I happen to own property myself, and if one of my tenants calls me up and says, Dennis, a roof is leaking, I'll tell you what, Brian, I get over there right away. Because when water starts coming in, you got mold building up, it's just drywall, plaster walls, a lot of damage. You have to repaint, and you're holding these people's feet to the fire. This is just ridiculous. They're gonna save like $1.5 million, but they're gonna have to spend all this money fixing as time goes on. As every day goes on, there's probably more and more and more and more damage done to the inside of that building that these gentlemen are gonna have to pay for. And you're worried about the aesthetics. This roof, it's going to look beautiful, and it's going to. I thought I got to speak here. I thought this was my time. You usually want to talk at the end. Go ahead, Brian. Speak.
Again, this board is not trying to decide aesthetics. This board is trying to decide whether or not we have enough information to make a decision to overturn the opinion of another board.
Exactly. And I have another point. My second point is, it's unethical for you to get any kind of a vote on this, Brian. Your wife is on that board. It's unethical. It's a conflict of interest. You should recuse yourself, and you shouldn't even get to vote on this.
I appreciate your comment. Thank you.
It's very simple, Brian. You say, ladies and gentlemen, I will not be voting on this evening.
I'm planning to abstention. Please have a seat. I've never said I was voting. I have to chair a public hearing.
Well, eventually there's going to be a vote on this by the board.
Yeah, okay, so you're making, please have a seat. Thank you very much. I appreciate your comment and your interest.
Can I make a motion to, no, she's writing. She's signing in.
Are there further comments? Okay, go ahead.
Matt Plunkett, North Hill Drive. Sitting here tonight, I think this is the first time I really realized, excuse me, that this has been hanging fire now for 18 months. These people have been living with a leaking roof for 18 months, and it's taken this long to get to this point where we have to decide to overturn the vote of the Historic Preservation Commission. You know, this is a situation which I think is a perfect example of the old saying that when small people cast long shadows, it's a sure sign that the sun is setting. You know, this should be a no-brainer to get this roof fixed for these people. If it's not an exact replica of what was there when the building was built, so be it. It's not the end of the world. You know, cripes almighty.
Is there anything further? Okay. I'm going to motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
No.
All right. Mr. Supervisor, I would like to make a motion for Resolution 2024-576, and that's the appeal of the Historic Preservation Commission decision, and I would ask our town clerk for a roll call. Oh,
Second.
I'd like to make a point quickly. So it was brought up that we were talking about an arbitrary or potentially arbitrary decision to overturn the HPC's denial of the certificate of appropriateness. I have the utmost respect for the HPC commission members. They put a lot of time and effort into making sure they apply this standard. That being said, as I said at the last meeting, for those of us that were here, logical, reasonable people and intelligent people can disagree on the way a law should be interpreted and how it should apply forward. Preservation brief number 16 is guidance to go forward on, and that is appropriate when you review it yourselves as the sitting town board members for us to determine whether or not we agree with the HPC's decision and therefore to either overturn or move forward on it. So with that, I do second, and I'm ready to vote.
I need to rescind, though. I need to make the resolution for 2024-641.
Second.
Okay. With that being said, I'd like the town clerk to ask for a roll call vote.
Supervisor Copa,
I'm abstaining.
Deputy Supervisor Lavin,
Yes.
Councilmember Berger,
Yes, but I'd like to make one comment. I respectfully request that the building owners maintain the building as affordable housing.
Councilmember Zuccalla, and Councilmember Marinucci.
Yes.
Okay, moving on. We have a couple of development review actions on the agenda this evening, results from prior public hearings. The first of which is Resolution 613. It's a seeker determination on.
Give them a minute.
Sure.
to
If anybody
leave.
if anybody is leaving, go ahead. So the motion carried. The synthetic roof is going to be allowed as the board voted to.
Yeah, I don't think they realized it.
With that said, I'll give anybody who is trying to get up a moment, and then we'll proceed with the rest of the hearing.
I just wanted to first thank the board for taking the vote this evening, but second, I assume that resolution will be available on the town board's website. Thank you very much.
Okay, moving forward with development review actions, the next item,
Do they want to leave, or
they can
you
simply.
can stay, but, okay.
The next items on the agenda is Resolution 613. It's a seeker determination on 1789 Dodge Road, Z 2020-15. On the seeker determination, I'm going to make a motion to move the seeker determination forward.
Second.
Okay, on seeker, all in favor? The next item on the agenda is Resolution 539. I'm going to just pause for a minute.
Have a good evening.
Okay. On Resolution 539, this is the adoption of a local law to amend the zoning map for 1789 Dodge Road. It's Z 2020-15. I'll motion the resolution. We just voted on seeker. This is the local law. So I'm motioning the local law as it appears.
Second.
All right, on the question, I'm going to ask our town clerk for a voice vote, please.
Supervisor Copa,
No.
Deputy Supervisor Lavin.
Yes.
Councilmember Berger.
Yes.
Councilmember Zucala.
Yes.
And Councilmember Marinucci.
Yes.
Okay. On Resolution 538, it's a denial to amend the Bicentennial Comprehensive Plan for 1790, 1860, and 1920 North French Road and 999 Campbell Boulevard, a portion of. It's BCPA 2024-01. I'm going to make a motion. I'll motion the resolution as it appeared.
Second.
On the question, I'd ask our town clerk for a voice vote, please.
Supervisor Copa.
No.
Deputy Supervisor Lavin.
Yes.
Councilmember Berger.
No.
Councilmember Zucala.
Yes.
And Councilmember Marinucci.
Yes.
On Resolution 210, I'm motioning to adjourn that to our second August meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is an opportunity for public expression. I'm going to motion to open public expression at this time.
Second.
And I would ask our town attorney to please read the rules for public expression.
Thank you. There are two opportunities for public expression tonight. I'd like to first address the town board's rules of order with regard to decorum and public expression. For your convenience, there are copies of the full rules of order available online. With regard to decorum, order and decorum must be maintained throughout tonight's meeting. Pursuant to the rules of order, speakers shall address the board as a whole and refrain from partisan political commentary, personal, impertinent, slanderous, or profane remarks, catcalls, noisemakers, or other outbursts that disrupt the order of the meeting. Any person who makes such remarks or otherwise disrupts the meeting without outbursts, shouting, threats, or other disruptive behavior shall, at the discretion of the supervisor, or after motion and majority consensus of the board, be ruled out of order. Again, with regard to public expression, per the rules of order, the purpose of public expression is to allow the opportunity for the public to formally address the board on any matter involving the town of Amherst. This is not a question and answer session or intended to be a conversation with the board. Rather, this is an opportunity for the public to express their opinion on issues that the board will cover during that meeting or bring to attention an issue involving the town of Amherst. Speakers may comment for up to 3 minutes. The town clerk will ring the bell once when you have 30 seconds remaining and twice when your time is finished. When your time is finished, please return to your seat. There's a sign-up sheet at the podium. Once the list of sign-ups has been exhausted, the supervisor will ask if there are additional speakers who would like to comment. A final reminder that decorum must be maintained. All remarks should be addressed to the board as a whole and not to any single member thereof. And in the event that the speaker's inquiry is urgent or their comment is inaccurate, the supervisor or a town board member may respond for 1 minute after closing public expression. Thank you for your adherence to these town board's rules of order.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. All in favor of opening public expression?
Aye.
And I will answer questions at the end. First is Andrea Morganti. Please come forward.
Good evening, Amherst Town Board members. My name is Andrea Morganti, and I reside in Gettsville. This evening, I'd like to talk to you about garbage. Residents that have broken or damaged garbage cans have received a notice that they would be responsible to replace their damaged garbage cans for $65. If you don't replace the garbage can, they are being told their garbage may not be picked up until they purchase a new one. Now, do you think this is fair that the residents have to purchase another one with their own funds? Who do you think damaged the garbage cans, the residents or the garbage company? Amherst residents pay taxes so that the town can take care of our garbage needs that are included in our taxes. And now the town has the audacity to charge the residents for their negligence. Go down any street in Amherst during garbage pickup and you'll see our garbage cans thrown around or even laying in the streets. Now, do you think this was done by the residents? This is beyond belief. Since we pay taxes for garbage every year, Our taxes go up year after year, but yet our services get reduced. During a time of financial hardship, increased inflation, and uncertainty the board should be focusing on cost-saving measures that help us, the taxpayers. The town board should be focusing on where to cut costs, make the hard choices of which projects are not essential and which ones don't benefit the residents, so that we can continue to have a good quality of life in Amherst. The town should spend less money on special projects, but on essential services for town residents. A trip was taken to the town refuse departments recently to find out why this was being done. Now, this is the response that we got from the supervisor. We don't have any money because it wasn't budgeted, and the warranty is up. As a resident of Amherst, I'd like to know why money wasn't budgeted to replace the garbage cans if you knew the warranty was going to be up. Because the town did not renew the warranty or budget for replacements, the burden is now being placed on the residents. The new ones now have a 10-year warranty, and hopefully the town will remember to place in this year's budget costs for future replacements. Thank you.
Tom Weisbeck.
Tom Weisbeck, 48 Roberts Court. One question I had asked is about the lawsuit about the street lighting. Is it an in-house attorney or is that an outside counsel? And if it is, who's outside counsel? You know the lawsuit that you know what I'm talking about, right, Brian? I'm just making sure.
I understand.
Okay, thank you. Secondly, I still haven't had an answer on this question about the codes for the street, for the lights of the foot candles. No one told me. I haven't received the answer from this question, that we have a code for the lighting for foot candles. I asked, what is the code? What is it with all these new streetlights? What is their foot candles are? Are they part of the? Did it surpass the code? Maybe I wasn't around when there was a discussion. Did you guys just blow that off, or did you vote on it saying we could pass that? It had to be in the last, whenever you guys took over the streetlights. So maybe you can answer that, Jackie. You were the head of the committee. Also, let's see. With that new development I'm sorry, I'm escaping the memory of my. Okay, let me get back to what I'm thinking about. I'm sorry. I'm having sorry. Let me look at my notes. For the street, what street is that? By the Boulevard Mall, not the Boulevard Mall, but now I can't remember the store. I'm sorry, I'm having trouble.
Tell us what the issue is,
I know,
not the
my
street
brain's not
name.
working, I'm sorry. I didn't write it down tonight. I'll have to come back later on.
Is
My
it-
fault.
Is it Mill?
No,
Oh,
the Mill
okay.
Street,
Okay.
Mill Street, you guys,
Yeah.
I understand.
Okay.
Go for it, but my half a brain's not working tonight, sorry.
Okay. John Trabert.
John Traver, 234 Mount Vernon. I would like to address the LED issue once again. As mentioned before, this is a $33 million project to be bonded. $33 million bonded over 20 years at 4% equates to $48 million. 33 million at 4% over 10 years comes to 40 million. If there's 9,600 streetlights in Amherst to be converted to LED, that's a cost of $4,100 to $5,000 per light. The town of Amherst is purchasing the existing poles and paying for the installation of new LED heads to be put on the existing poles. First of all, has anyone ever verified the accuracy of the count of the 9,600 poles? Next, along with verifying the amount of poles, has anyone ever examined the condition of the poles that this town purchased? So if you look at these photos in kind of high-end areas, LeBrun and Keswick, you'll see the condition of these poles. So if this town is putting LED heads on these poles, is this a wise decision? Look at some of these poles. This is ridiculous. And these pictures only represent some of the streetlights in the town that were purchased. You can see by the photos that this town has allowed LED heads to be installed on deteriorating poles. Should the condition of the poles been considered during the negotiation of this project? Probably so. You can also see that black LED heads were installed on green poles. Can we show that? Right there, that's the Pomeroy Park neighborhood. That's pretty good looking. I think that the people could at least have matching colors on their poles. These pictures are only a sampling of about 5 streets, and I can only guess that there are many more rotting poles in the town that the taxpayers are paying for. To pay such an exorbitant price of $4,000 to $5,000 for deteriorating equipment is just another example of the failure of this town board to be good stewards of taxpayers' dollars. How can this town board continue to push unnecessary pet projects until the essential services and infrastructure are properly maintained? Thank you.
Dennis Hoban. Dennis.
Dennis Hoban, 216 California Drive. At the last meeting, I asked if the department heads would come to the meeting. Brian, are they here? Steve Floss from the Highway Department? You said you had his phone number, you would call him. Well, the roofs are still leaking at the Highway Department. It's been like 6 years. I'd like to ask Steve Floss what's going on with that. Is there anything in the budget, the new budget, to fix those leaks? Equipment that needs to be replaced, that needed to be replaced when you took office and still has not been replaced? Those are my questions. Are there any department heads here? Planning department? Attorney? That's it? Because it always seems like you're the only one that speaks, Brian. You can't have all the answers. Well, anyway, lastly, I was just wondering, did any of you march in the parade recently? In the Jolly Boys parade? Brian? Yeah, it's a yes or no. Angela did. Angela? Okay. Well, she's brave. Thank you.
Thank you. Jerry DeCosmo.
Good evening, Town Board members. My name is Jerry DeCosmo from Meyer Road. I'm here tonight to address the 2025 Town of Amherst budget. Just as a refresher, there was a budget transparency law, local law 2024-16, passed by this board on March 11th, 2024, under the consent agenda. We all believe that it was proposed and passed as an attempt to quell the public outrage over the 11.4% tax increase in the 2024 budget. I don't pretend to be any type of an expert on municipal budgets, so I believe that makes me a good representation of the public at large regarding how the budget can be transparent to the average citizen. I've been trying to stay on top of the budget process. I routinely, periodically review the town's website for any reference to the upcoming budget, and I found nothing. No statement about perhaps where we are in the process at minimum. By asking questions, I have discovered that about this time of year, summer, the individual departments develop a budget wish list. They will then meet with the administration to present the plan for the coming year, and from there they are finalized, compiled, and a proposed town budget is developed. As you well know, there are 21 departments listed on the Town of Amherst website. Since I couldn't find any references to the upcoming budget on the website, I decided to make some phone calls. One afternoon, I reached out to 12 of the departments regarding their budgets. I had some form of communication from a total of 7 department heads. To their credit, they were mostly very forthcoming about the trends of their individual budgets. Several mentioned having received a memo from the supervisor to be sure to make every effort when developing their individual department budget to hold the line on spending because the supervisor wanted to limit any tax increase for 2025. Each spoke to the budget trend being essentially flat, with the exception of contractual obligations or uncontrollable circumstances. I have spoken at this podium a couple of times about budget workshops, not public hearings. And again, I ask, when can we expect an interactive workshop? And if you aren't planning to hold any, why not? If you're serious about being transparent, it has to begin with the budget development process. Also on the website, in the name of transparency, there could be a list of the departments with a percentage of proposed budget change and a brief explanation for the change. After a disastrous 2024 budget for the Amherst taxpayers, you send a directive to hold the line to prevent another tax increase, while the 11.4% continues to be built in. Perhaps a better directive would have been to find a way to make some cuts and give the taxpayer some relief. As of this point, July 22nd, there's been nothing made public about the budget. It is your duty to be transparent. This was your idea, or was it just lip service? Thank you for your attention.
Matt Plunkett.
Matt Plunkett, North Hill Drive. A friend of mine told me that, I guess it was last week in the mail one day, he received a flyer. I think it was from GBN RTC in the town inquiring about any interest in putting some kind of pathway on the Peanut Line, the railroad right away. And yeah, I kind of got a kick out of that because when I worked here 20 years ago, I'm not from Amherst originally. I grew up in central New York. And sitting in a town board meeting one night, and people got going on about the Peanut Line and putting a bike path on the Peanut Line. And people came out of the woodwork to oppose it. And at that time, I think the town had some T21 money or something where they could have built it, 20 years ago, but they didn't. And at the end of the meeting, I turned to my department head and I said, let me ask you something. I said, what in hell is the Peanut Line? Because I had no idea what it was. And last summer, a very dear friend of mine and I, we got it into our heads to walk the Peanut Line. So we did. We didn't do it all in one day. Instead, we'd do bits and pieces on a Saturday or a Sunday afternoon. And I thought it was great. You can if you go down to the part between Paradise and Transit Road and walk that, you can still see the railroad ties in the ground from the trains, and also over between Sweet Home and Niagara Falls Boulevard, you can see it. But each weekend, we'd walk a little bit of it, and over the span of the summer, we walked the whole thing. I think it would be a great place to, that's just my opinion, it doesn't count for much in the greater scheme. I think it would be a great place to have some kind of a bike path or something like that. It might, probably be a bit expensive in places. There's a couple of streams that would have to be forded and things like that. but it's something that I think probably should have been done 20 years ago and wasn't. This would be a good time to make up for that and do it now if there's any way to do it. I'd be interested to hear when the results come in or to reach out to the neighbors what they think about it. I can take a pretty good guess. But I was just glad to see that there's some interest in doing something like that. I think it would be, just to look at it, I think would be fun. And, you know, if everybody got out there and walked it, maybe more people would agree with that. I just wanted to throw that out there on the table. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Gina Gentry. Gina.
Good evening, Gina Gentry, Bissell Drive in Amherst. So I guess I'm here to speak once again about the union workers and the town workers that their contracts are up. I hear that there is a meeting on Wednesday. Brian, I hope you're in town and not down in Florida with Benderson when the meeting's supposed to take place. I've had many town workers again come to me, and through many sources, I have been told that there are 2 board members that do not support the raises for these workers based upon the 11.4% increase. There's also one that proudly displays a union sign in their yard, but yet they never give the union what they want. In speaking to some of these workers, it is absolutely incomprehensible how you put projects over your own people. Talking to one whose wife is now working part-time because she's going back to school so that they can make a fair living wage. He is making too much to get food stamps, but cannot make enough to make ends meet for his kids. How is that fair? When you, Brian Culpa, are hiring people off the street, making 6 figures because they're friends and family of yours. And don't make that face, because I'm sure if we connect the dots, we could find a connection to you in some way, shape, or form. It's disgusting. You have people out there doing the dirty work, police officers that are defending, if you heard about that fight at Old Homestay with 90 people and they were stretched thin, someone could have gotten hurt. And nobody wants to move into Amherst because of these taxes and because of what's going on. So now you're pulling from the county list for police officers? The budget process is starting, and I cannot imagine that there are going to be any cuts to our taxes based off the fact that you have 2 contracts now up by the end of the year. Start putting people over your projects. The developers don't matter. Your workers do. And there are people that are looking to run against you. I'm going to be honest, the 3 of you, and Brian, I heard you're moving on to other things, and you should just back out now because a year and a half left. What else are you going to accomplish besides destroy our town even more? But I'm going to tell you, I'm working very hard to find someone on the Democratic and the Republican side that will run next year against each and every one that is up for election. And if I go down fighting and I still lose, at least I know I tried. Because this is absolutely disgusting. When I have people that are coming to me saying they can't make ends meet and nobody will stand up for them and renew their contract when they make $1.50 more every year with a step. Come on.
Anybody else?
Bob Dirtle, 92 Chateau Terrace. Couple questions. Did you get the email I sent about the signs on Chateau for Bornhava School Zone? Okay. All right, and one more thing about, I stopped at the police headquarters Friday and showed the officer some video of the people running the stop signs leaving Park School. Out of like 85 cars, I think 10 stopped at the 3 stop signs at the corner of Chateau North and Chateau East. So, and I also informed them, you know, if they could do something about the speeding. But today, I just happened to look up the street, and there's a car stopped at the stop sign at Chateau, and the car is on Chateau South. It stopped for maybe 30 seconds. The car behind it went around it. And, I mean, I've seen cars go around the corner, turning onto Chateau South, like doing 30 miles an hour. So that would have happened at that point in time. I mean, not only that, but you can't see down Chateau if what's coming, if you're, you know, you got the other car right there. So, you know, I give the police, the last week was Old Home Week, so I really didn't think they were going to come out Friday. I didn't see anybody today, but, you know, if you could mention it to them, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Got a motion to close public expression.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Sorry. Don didn't see you get up. I'll hold that. Go ahead.
Good evening, town board members. My name is Don Smith, North Long. With my expectation, the first thing you do is you ask if there were any other members of the board. That's what they said in your rules of
I asked
order.
if there was anybody else.
Okay. All right, here's the situation I think we are sort of looking for. I think this is what we're calling at least those people who are aware of what's going on. We want to become more like partners, less like customers, okay? That means you don't become the vendor, we get the customer, we receive what you produce. That's not what it is, that's not the model we want to use. We become more involved in the process. Now that puts a burden on both you and us to do more, which means we got to participate more and you got to provide information to us in a better and more proper way. And now I think the one season that comes to mind right now I'm most interested in is the budget process. Based on the last situation, I think it behooves everybody, you especially, to be more formalized and outgoing to the public about the budget process and provide information so they can understand how the budget process works and what your thinking on the budgetary process is going to look like. I have, in the past, been 1 or 2 people here that during budget hearings, and there weren't very many of us here from the public at those budget hearings, and that's a problem for the public. They've got to be more involved. It's as simple as that. But you've got to be more forthcoming in providing the information to allow them to be involved and put their benefit and put them in the process of giving them some sort of benefit to being involved. So we would like to be in part of this process, and anything you can do to make it easier on us to find these things out would be appreciated. Thank you very much.
Joe Baitovich, 35 B. Cyrus. Last month, I spoke about the Emergency Services Department and the amount of money they spend on their budget. I was told at the time the department is crucial in order to respond to FEMA-related emergencies. So I went home and tried to find out how many emergencies we had. FEMA's got a big database on there where you can qualify all emergencies for a certain state and a certain time period. So I looked up what we had New York State in 2018 and in Amherst. I came out with 1 emergency. That was in 2022 on our big blizzard. So during that time period, we spent $2.6 million for emergency services for 1 instance of a qualified emergency. I did some more research also on towns in the area and how much they spend yearly. Amherst is stuck at $440,000. Tonawanda have $88,000. Lancaster $59,000. West Seneca $40,000. Cheektowaga wins the race on that. They only spend $16,000 a year, where they have 2 police officers that apparently work part-time in the FEMA-related emergencies. So if the town really wants to save money on budgeting, they really need to change around the budgeting for emergency services, make it really an emergency and not something that's funded full-time year-round for somebody that's going to sit there until a December storm every 6 years. Thank you.
Good evening, town board meeting members. My name is Thomas Frank, and I reside at 5403 Main Street. And I'm here to talk about a 5-year environmental preservation, education, economic development project proposal. And tonight it's connected to 3 connected resolutions. Number 576 regarding the historic preservation for 400 Mill Street, 538 for the bicentennial, the comprehensive bicentennial plan as it relates to North French and Campbell Boulevard. And number 3 has to do with the MS4 mapping grant application that I am I'm working on a Village of Williamsville, Town of Amherst, Glen Park Joint Board regarding a lead agency resolution, a joint resolution for the formation of the Amherst, New York Central Park Greenway, the trails system, as far as underwriting in conjunction with number 1 is the Niagara River Greenway, the 2050 relicensing of the Niagara Power Project, and number 2 is the connection to the Erie Canal National Heritage Corridor. That the for your information, I attended the Albany, New York statewide Greenway Parks and Trails Advocacy Summit meeting regarding outdoor education, environmental education for the Parks and Trails Advocacy Summit meeting that will connect the education initiative to the school districts. And I attended the meeting that was in Albany on May 20th, 2024. And the last thing that I'd like to mention has to do with the adoptive reuse of the 404 Mill Street property, the boiler house on Mill Street in the New York State Park, that those properties have a slate roof, which is historic in nature. But also, I spoke to the people from the Rhinestone Woods as far as the Nature Center business model for interconnecting the Glen Park Joint Board to the Amherst Central Park walkway down to the, you gonna throw me out? Oh, okay, we're going to have a walk from the artistic thing down through the state park to the Amherst Youth and Recreation Center. It's going to be the first, and it's going to be an annual, and it's, you're
Thanks.
welcome.
Thank
You
you,
do good
Tom.
work.
Okay. Anybody else?
Dave Howard, 194 Roycroft Boulevard. I'd like to talk about the function of town government What is the primary function of town government? To me, it's running it in the most efficient manner possible, providing needed services, maintaining town properties and infrastructure, making sure taxpayers' monies are used for town business and not private business uses. The current Royal Park Sports Complex is an example of town government overstepping its authority, using taxpayer dollars for private company/organizations. The sports complex portion of Royal Park is designed for Damon University, not what the town residents need. Question: were any studies done to the number of tennis courts needed by town residents based on a number already in use and the capacity of them? I'm going to answer that, no. Current tennis courts that I've done unofficial: Amherst High School, 5, Amherst Middle School, 4, North Forest Bike Path, 3, Williamsville South, 5, Williamsville East, 5, Williamsville North, 5, Sweet Home, 8, and Paradise Park, 4. That's 39 total. How do we need, in a small little community park, 6 tennis courts? It's just unheard of. This is why people are mad at where our tax dollars are going. Just for you guys notice, the left bridge going over Ellicott Creek on the golf course has been out of service for over a month now due to boards broken. It's totally rotted. Supposedly it was inspected last year, and I don't know how it passed because that whole deck needs to be replaced. The other 2 bridges that go over that golf course are also, the decks are in poor condition. The one that has all the carts going over them has multiple boards that are cracked, broken, and missing portions of it. It's not going to last another year. So the only way they're going to get around it is going on the bike path bridge, and that's going to cause all kinds of problems. So instead of spending money on Damon University sports complexes, we should be taking care of our own infrastructure. Thank you.
Hi, Shelley Schratz, Kensington. I have a couple suggestions, and do what you want with them, but we've done them in the past and it does work. As far as the budgets go, this is the time to pick the days that you're going to start having the conversations, and they should go out. Go out to the public. If Franny has to send something or something has to be done, get it out to the people. The people, that way they can't say that they didn't know or whatever. But you can't just put it hidden. It's got to be sent out to them, and then ask them for their input then. And you'll get good input and you'll get bad input, but it does help when it comes time for you to do the first preliminary budget, you know, way before the elections, and not that anyone's running this year, but I think it's a smart move. The other thing too is that liaisons. The liaison from the town board, who is with all these departments, okay, should be accountable at the town board meetings if it's something big on your agenda. It takes the pressure off the board so that the liaison, the whole board, the liaison has that info and you educate the public instead of them always going to Brian. I mean, Brian, you can be picked on, you can handle it. I'm kidding. But you know what I'm saying. That's the point of the liaison. And people are always asking, how come the boards don't meet? Or how come there's not people on there? I think that is something that's simple enough that you guys can handle and get it done. And I think the people need to hear it. And they need to see it and include them. And you'd be surprised how much easier some things would be. So those are my 2 cents. And I want to say thank you, whoever called the highway department to clean the traffic circle over on. I appreciate that. Cheektowaga actually followed and did theirs. Okay? But I will say this. Someone needs to check over in that whole area. Jackie, I don't know if you drive around and see, there's garbage everywhere. And I don't know if it's the garbage trucks, the big trucks, but it is a mess. And the one thing, did someone turn me off? But the one thing is that if, and it's in Cheektowaga is worse than that part, than us. But if you see garbage, then it just becomes a neighborhood of garbage. There are liquor bottles everywhere. So something's going on. I haven't seen the police over there like they used to be, which is okay. Cheektowaga sits there some nights, and so does, because of the city of Buffalo, you know, that's the Zoom spot. It's just a point of fact, you know, and it's a great neighborhood. They all are, and if we let it be. So that's my 2 cents. I don't know who you talk to. And again, for the pots and the planters, I don't know who I would call to put in those circles. You know, Cheektowagas put their pots out to put the flowers like you got here. That, when you clean it up and people see it, because people do go through the neighborhood, makes it more welcoming. So if you tell me who to call or whatever, I'll do it, but I can't do it myself. I'm bad with flowers. I kill them.
Anybody else? Anyone else? Going to motion to close public expression?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We do have a consent agenda this evening. I'm going to ask our town clerk to please read the consent agenda.
Councilmember Marinucci, 1, 2. Town Attorney, 1, 2, 3, 4. Town Clerk, 1. Building Maintenance, 1. Controller, 1. Contract Compliance, 1, 2. Economic Development, 1, 2. Engineering, 1, 2. Highway, 1. Human Resources, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Planning, 2, 3. Police, 1. Senior Services, 1. Sewer Plant, 16, 1. Youth and Rec, 1, 2. Communications, 1 was consent, 2 refer to planning, 3 refer to planning, 4 refer to planning, engineering, highway, and 5 refer to planning.
Okay, with that, I'm going to motion the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The next item on our agenda is the second round of public expression. I'm going to open that now.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'm back, Gina. So back to the cost of things and obviously the contracts. It also was brought to my attention that there's been some money that was taken out of the budget or cut from the budget to reline the sewers. And from what I understand, it was a hefty amount, and a lot of people are questioning where that money has gone. You're taking a project that should be done. It's for the Eggertsville-Snyder area, which has the oldest sewers. And it's all throughout the town that it would help, but it's cheaper to reline them than to replace them. And right now, that money is missing. It was either put somewhere else. I don't know. These are questions that the workers are wondering because they had this plan in place and now all of a sudden the money's gone. But we seem to have no money to spend on other things. So do you have an answer for that, Brian?
I will answer all these right at the end of this public expression.
Okay, so you're gonna answer that one at the end. And it's gonna be actually where that money went.
I can tell you specifically what money was and where it went.
Okay, thank you very much. Also, there's the trucks that they have that are falling apart that are from the 90s. Is that something that's going to be in this budget coming up? That is another question I would like to know because proper working, machinery is important to keep the town up to date with things. And the last thing I would like to bring up is that we have a survey, which you made no comment on in the Amherst Bee. On page 8, for those that are here or those that are watching, and even all of you up there, you can take the survey. We're getting residents to actually give their opinions of how the town board has served us. They're not favorable right now, so you can hope and pray that something else happens. But I would suggest to anybody listening that you go on page 8 of the Amherst Bee. It will be open till the end of the month. Thank you.
Pick up my junk. Anybody else?
Don Smith, North Long. I'm not going to belabor the point here. Just want to make the point that public input, these public participation sessions are important to the people, and they want to use it. So expect it to happen and be thankful that it does, because they're giving you some information you probably wouldn't get any other way. I know you probably don't want to hear it, but it's what we want to say to our elected officials, and it's important to us. So we're trying to exercise our responsibility as good citizens to talk to our elected representatives in a way that's reasonable and that makes sense to both sides. Thank you very much for listening.
Anything further? Seeing none.
Dennis Hoban, 216 California Drive. I'd like to read a text that I sent in shortly after the election, the last election, but before you raised our property taxes 11.4%. Thank you for supporting my friend Rich Wainwright for Amherst Highway Superintendent. Rich is a stand-up guy, and he ran a clean campaign, unlike his opponent. He lost this race, but he is not the only loser. The taxpayers of Amherst will continue to pay higher and higher taxes, not for more services, but for less. Money will be spent to help large companies like Benderson, Uniland, et cetera, while the taxpayer needs get little attention. Politicians care little about parties, only themselves. If Republicans rule the roost in Amherst, tomorrow morning, they would all be Republicans. We had a chance to elect someone who would do us right, but ultimately, we failed. God bless Dennis Hoban. I wrote that after the election, and it's pretty prophetic, actually. I wrote that after the election, but before you announced that you were raising our property taxes 11.4, which 4 of the board members up there tonight, you all voted for that. Matter of fact, except for Angela Marinucci, you folks pretty much have voted for everything that Brian has wanted. So your name's on all this stuff. So, thank you.
Anybody else? A motion to exit public expression.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, I'm going to answer some of the questions that I have. It's regarding the lawsuit. While I'm not going to speak in about active litigation that is handled by in-house and not outside counsel. I believe I can say that. What? Charles Herzig is? Okay, so we have outside counsel now for that. Repeat it, please.
It's Chellis Herzig, Monty Inspire.
Regarding the foot candles for the lights, it is in the bid package. The lights are controllable and dimmable. So there's not necessarily a set foot candle at the highest value. They can be reduced if we're in fact outside of our allowed foot candles. Regarding the LED issue with pole condition, we do have inspection process regarding poles. If the contractors are replacing lights on poles that are damaged beyond what we should be accepting, then we do need to know about those. I will be submitting the photos to the contractor and to the inspection team. Regarding verified counts, yes, part of this process was actually to get a survey into GIS. That has happened, and that was verified on a case-by-case basis. Regarding the head colors, we are standardized on black heads. That may mean that at some point we need to paint poles, but we are switching to that single standardized head. Regarding department heads, Steve Floss is a separately elected department head, as was his predecessor. He's not a department head that has to report to me or to this board. Regarding 6 years of roof leaks, we've budgeted in the past for repairs to the building. A lot of times funds weren't really used correctly, and by the department. Again, this town board does not control the highway department. The highway department is separately elected head. This year, we have a plan in place. We are currently doing an evaluation of whether or not that building should be repaired or replaced. That's going to take a while to try to figure out the best process, but we're doing that over the course of the next few months, the next 6 months or so, and ultimately we'll make a decision about where to go with the building itself. Regarding the parade, I was at a field dedication at Matthews and McCarthy. It was a wonderful celebration of a person who's given a lot of time and energy to youth sports. Regarding the town budget and transparency, we're not through departments yet. We do have 21 departments that have to come in and meet with me, plus fire departments. There are 8 fire departments who have to come in before I can even begin to have a conversation about where we are. And regarding the Peanut Line Bike Trail, it's Go Bike. It's an advocacy group that is currently working to try to get something happening at the Peanut Line. That organization does have some information up on their website. Regarding the Bornhava signs, yes, I've got your email. I'm trying to get them moved. There are some regulations about where they can be placed. In some cases, it may mean doubling something up, but that is something that we're working on.
I was told they were moved to the places that regulations say they need to be, so they're looking at it again.
Yeah, so we're currently working on that issue. Regarding the emergency department, our emergency department, first of all, we've had more than a single emergency. Local states of emergency have been actually fairly numerous. They include big situational fires with displaced residents on New Year's Eve this past year. The blizzard in December of 20. I'll just get my dates wrong. In 22, those are sort of key sort of highlights, but there have been more than 10 and since I've taken office. But our emergency services department also deals with our safety and pest training and safety monitoring throughout the town. That's a big deal because PESH is basically the government form of OSHA, and we need to make sure we're compliant on those items. They also deal with our insurance issues, like when we're purchasing insurance, how we're insuring our facilities, how we're insuring vehicles, and they deal with base communications systems, and currently are working on communications between departments. We have known gaps in our fire coverage and highway coverage. We're trying to bring all of our radios up to current standards, and that department works on those items as well. Regarding the Rhinestein Woods Nature Center, it is a great nature center, and there are certainly elements of it that could benefit the town of Amherst. Whether the boiler house is something that we could actually renovate or retrofit to that standard, I don't know. Regarding the golf course bridge, we do have a golf course architect working on that. It does require somebody with a stamp and the corresponding engineers to give us that information so that we can do the repair correctly, because it is going to be quite a repair. Regarding garbage in the circle area by Harlem Kensington, I will let Highway know if it's something in the right of way. Obviously, that's something we can deal with. And regarding pots and planters, what we did in the village was contract with a company to maintain those. It's something I have talked to Steve Floss about. Regarding the relining of sewers, we had increased our sewer relining to include ARPA funding. Was one of the places where we used ARPA. That funding has fallen off since the ARPA funding has been expended. And we did redirect some of our funding this year to deal with the Bailey Avenue sewer project after we had a failure on Niagara Falls Boulevard sewer. So we will be returning to normal funding levels next year for that lining project, which will basically see ARPA replaced with town funding. And regarding, I have a note here about, regarding as to whether or not the election happened before the town budget was announced. The budget was announced the first week of October. The election, to the best of my knowledge, was held the first week of November. I'm going to motion to adjourn the board meeting. Council member?
Yes, thank you. Thank you. I asked Brian for just a moment. I am the liaison to both the Amherst Police Department and Amherst Traffic Safety, and I wanted just to make a quick comment here. As liaison to both of those committees, the issues of traffic rules violations and speeding cross my desk on a regular basis. I have spoken with the chief. I'm not ignoring your calls, nor is he. However, when the chief does assignments, I trust and respect his professional judgment. He assigns his staff as he believes is best for the town of Amherst. And it's not just speeding. There's issues of drugs, automotive crime, and other issues, and I trust him to assign his staff, and he does that. The good news, though, is there are officers in the academy right now who will come to work for the town before the end of the year, and the chief has assured me that he will assign some of those to traffic. So we're working on the process, but there is a lead time, matter of fact, a long lead time to hire new officers, because you not only have to hire them, they have to pass a civil service test, and they have to pass the academy. So we're not, the town is not ignoring the concerns of traffic and speeding. It just takes us time to address them.
Okay. With that, I'm going to motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?